These are 5 mystery boxes, and inside each one is a broken GPU. I bought all 5 from different sellers, spending a total of $74. Every single card was listed with the same problem: no display, not working. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not a professional hardware repair technician. What I do have is an unhealthy obsession with cheap tech. I watch people flex their expensive GPU with glowing RGB lights, and yeah, I get a little jealous. But with a limited budget, the only way in is risk. So today, we're gambling. Can I fix any of these GPU? Can I make a profit? Or did I just buy 5 very fancy paperweights? Let's find out. All right, let's take a look at the first GPU. I wasn't exactly confident when I saw how it was packaged. Just a thin layer of bubble wrap, that's it. I picked this thing up for $8 on eBay, and honestly, one glance tells you exactly why it was that cheap. The cooling fan is completely missing. This is an MSIGT 732 gigabytes, and aside from the fact that the fan is gone, the card actually looks fine on the outside. No major scratches, no obvious damage. The seller clearly stated that it doesn't output a display, but never explained why the fan was missing in the first place, which immediately made me curious. They also claimed it was untested, and for once I kind of believe that. The warranty seal on the screws was still intact, with no signs of tampering. That usually means nobody opened it up before. Before testing anything, I cleaned the card thoroughly. Rust remover, cleaned all the display ports, and scrubbed the PCIe contacts. Then I set up a known good test system, just to make sure the PC itself wasn't the problem. Once everything was ready, I plugged the card in. No display. Okay, fair enough. Maybe it's just one bad output. I tried the second port. Nothing. Third port? Still nothing. At this point, simple fixes clearly weren't going to cut it, so I took the card apart. Inside, everything looked normal. No burned components, no obvious damage. I cleaned both sides of the PCB using a non-conductive cleaner, then used a heat gun to gently reflow and reinforce the solder joints, just enough to see if anything would change. Moment of truth. I plugged it back in and powered on, and then, what the hell, the GPU literally caught fire. One component started smoking, black smoke everywhere. That was it. Game over. At that point, there was zero hope left. I don't have replacement components, and even if I did, this is way beyond my repair skills. So yeah, this GT 730 is officially dead, and I moved it very far away from the rest of my GPU before it decided to take someone else with it. Moving on to the second GPU, and right away I felt a bit more confident than last time. This one was wrapped in 2 layers of bubble wrap, so at least the seller tried. Oh wow. This card has that classic early 2010s Asus design. Very recognizable. The black and red color scheme instantly reminds me of Iron Man, like one of those old-school armored suits. This is an Asus R7240, 2GB DDR3, and I picked it up for 15 bucks. Just from a quick visual inspection, it's pretty obvious this card lived in a not-so-clean environment. The I/O shield is heavily rusted, which tells me it definitely wasn't treated gently by its previous owner. And there's one thing I really didn't like seeing. The screws show clear signs of being opened before. That usually means someone already tried to fix it and failed. Still, I wasn't ready to give up on it yet. As usual, I cleaned all the display ports and the PCIe contacts before testing. Everything ready. Time to power on. Oh shit. For a second, I thought something was wrong with my test system. Maybe some kind of aftershock from the previous GPU disaster? Then, oh my god, it powered on. The fan was spinning, the system was running, but no display. I tried every output port. HDMI, DVI, nothing. No signal at all. At this point, there was only one thing left to do. Take it apart. Inside, the PCB actually looked fine. No obvious burn marks, no exploded components. But then I noticed something strange. When I powered the card on and checked by touch, the GPU wasn't generating any heat at all. Completely cold. That's when it clicked. The most critical part of the card, the GPU core itself, wasn't working. Dead silicon. And just like that, my hopes disappeared. Along with those $15, not a massive loss, but still kind of painful. Alright, let's move on to GPU number 3. I picked this one up for $13, and at this point, I was really asking myself, am I finally going to make some money? Or is this just another failure waiting to happen? Before I even touched the screwdriver, things already looked bad. I hadn't done anything aggressive yet, but the fan shroud and the cooler weren't even holding together properly. That's usually a very bad sign. It honestly looked like someone had dropped this card hard at some point. After putting it back together as best as I could, I realized what it actually was: a GTX 1052 gigabytes. On paper, that's not terrible, but the deeper I looked, the worse it got. When I inspected the PCB closely, I noticed that one component, most likely a capacitor, was completely missing. Right next to it was a deep scratch, like something sharp had slammed into the board and ripped that capacitor straight off. At that moment, my confidence dropped to almost zero. Still, I wanted to believe. Maybe, just maybe, a miracle would happen. So I plugged it in and tested it. Reality hit hard. No display. I tried every output port. Same result. Nothing. When I touched the heatsink, it was stone cold. No heat at all. The GPU wasn't even trying to come alive. At that point, it was pretty clear what happened. The broken shroud, the missing capacitor, and that nasty scratch sealed its fate long before it ever reached me. This card was dead on arrival, and there was nothing I could do to save it. Looks like I just burned another $13. Yeah, today was not my day. Alright, let's move on to GPU number 4. After burning money on the first 3 cards, I was really hoping this one could save the day. This is a low-profile RX 550, which I bought for $18. The seller mentioned it was unstable, possibly due to overheating. Not great, but at least that gave me a starting point. I cleaned it up and dropped it into my test system. First boot, no display. At that moment, I honestly thought I'd been scammed again. But after switching to another video output, the card finally posted. Huge relief until I noticed the next issue. The fan barely worked. It didn't spin smoothly and sometimes stopped completely. When I nudged it with my finger, it started moving again, which pretty much confirmed that cooling was the main problem. Once in Windows, driver installation went smoothly. GPU-Z confirmed it was an RX 550 with 2 GB of VRAM. I ran a benchmark, and surprisingly, it completed without crashing. In Cyberpunk 2077 at 1080p, it managed around 18 FPS, but temperatures were high. In Minecraft with shaders, it hovered around 25 FPS. Performance wasn't great, but the card stayed alive during longer testing sessions. So here's the conclusion. One dead video port and a failing fan, but considering these cards usually sell for $40 to $50, grabbing one for $18 could still be a win if it holds up over time. Alright, moving on to the final GPU, and this one is the most interesting of the bunch. It's a GTX 1063 GB, and I picked it up for just $20. From the outside, it actually looked great. No cracks, no obvious damage. But the seller clearly warned no display output. And yeah, they weren't lying. I tested every port, nothing. So I pulled it apart, and that's when I saw it. A component that had clearly blown at some point. This wasn't something I could fix myself, so I took it to a repair tech. After checking the power rails, he confirmed the issue. Burnt VRAM and GPU power circuitry. Repair cost? $15. At that point, I said, why not? 2 hours later, the card was back. Same serial, same board. Definitely mine. I dropped it into the system and ran Heaven Benchmark. To my surprise, it passed without any issues, topping out at around 70 degrees Celsius. That already felt like a small miracle. Then I pushed it harder with Cyberpunk 2077 1080p, low settings. The result? 50 to 60 frames per second. Stable, temps around 68 degrees Celsius, even after a 30-minute session. Rock solid. So yeah, I basically revived a $70 GPU for half the price. After testing all 5 mystery GPU, it honestly felt like a low-budget survival movie. 3 failed completely, but the last 2 saved the whole run. Still, no warranty means constant anxiety. But hey, that's part of the gamble. Thanks for sticking with me for these 9 minutes, and don't forget to subscribe for more questionable tech adventures.